Beyond the Bell, Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close starts right now.
And right now, we are about 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick, Taylor Riggs, Sonali Basak, counting you down to the closing bell, here to help take us beyond the bell. Our global simulcast, joining now by Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec to parse all the crucial moments of the day, the month, the quarter, and maybe even the year here. Carol, we are down here on the day right now at 43.12 and down on the month by about 4 to 5% here on the S&P 500.
And taking legs down in the last 30 minutes. I mean, it's hard to believe that we've just got one more quarter in 2021. There's been a lot of sectors to watch in today's trading session alone. Retail, we can talk about that later. U.S. health stocks, though, on pace for the worst month since the pandemic began, since February of 2020, down about 5% in the month of September. So really watching what groups are doing what, Tim.
Yeah, on pace for a couple superlatives when the bell rings for the close today. On track for the first down month on the S&P 500 since January. The first mixed quarter in 8 for U.S. stocks. Month to date, the NASDAQ Taylor down more than 5%. Quarter to date, though, it does look like the S&P 500 will eke out ever so slight of a gain at just about 0.3%.
Yep, lots of superlatives when we talk about some of the worst months that we've seen, at least going back since March of 2020. Sonali, what is so interesting, though, is some of the economic data also looked a little bit weaker today. When you think about some of the jobless claims and then mortgage rates rising, the pressure that maybe that takes off some of the housing market.
Yeah, and a lot of headlines ahead for us. Still waiting on more from Washington through the night.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I mean, next week is jobs, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to look forward to for the next week and a half.
We should point out, too, I mean, obviously we're breaking down the equity markets here, but I mean, look, you bought high-yield bonds at the start of the month, you're in the hole. You bought investment-grade bonds at the start of the month, you're in the hole. You bought treasuries at the start of the month, you're in the hole here. The only thing really, the real bright spot here is energy. If you bought crude oil or energy stocks, you're doing pretty well here, at least on a monthly basis. Let's go through some of these superlatives right now, guys, because the Dow Jones Industrial Average going to finish the day down by about 555 points, 1.6% here. That's going to be down about 4% here on a monthly basis, 2% on a quarterly basis. S&P 500 down 1% on the day, 5% on the month, and it is going to manage to squeeze out a modest gain on a quarterly basis of 0.2%. The NASDAQ down about 0.4% here on the day here. This is the composite down about 5% here on the month, and no gain at all right now for the quarter. Your Russell 2000 here on a daily basis going to finish the day down 0.9%. That's down about 3% on the month and 4.6% here on the quarter. And we should point out, Carol, that all of these indices are still in the green by more than 10% on a year-to-date basis.
Which is the perspective we were just talking about with our guest, Yana Barton, over at Eaton Vance. I mean, this whole idea that if you're an investor, you might say, if I've got 10, 12, 15% already for one of these major indices, if you're following an index, you might say that's a pretty good year. So you do wonder how investors are going to look at the last quarter. I do want to point out in terms of breadth, S&P 500, most names lower. We did see selling into the close on those major equity averages. S&P 500, 461 names lower on the day, Taylor, and we did see 41 gaining some ground. It was a hard time for me to find gainers, 3 unchanged.
You know, Carol, it's so interesting. Sometimes you get lost within the month and the quarter and the year, and it's good to take a step back and see how maybe bad of a day, at least it was for today. For the radio audience, as we always do, it is the sector winners and the sector losers. And unfortunately, there is a lot of red, even in the green. In fact, there's only one green sector in the green mark, and that is some of the semi and semiconductors. As we've continued to talk about some of the chip shortages, for the radio audience, it's up about 1 to 0.2%. Everything else is in the red on a daily basis. Carol, I'll take you down to the bottom of the screen. It really has been that rotation out of this reflationary trade. It is dividends, it's transportations, it's food and beverage, it's capital goods. Those are some of the worst performers, off about 2 to 3%, though I would argue this, unfortunately, looks pretty broad-based.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. A lot of red. It was a little tricky to find some gainers in today's session, but we did find them. Electronic Arts, I actually heard Romaine talking about it earlier today on Surveillance. This stock continuing its streak of gains, 6 in a row, top in the S&P 500, another 3.25% higher in today's session. We had some analysts out today saying Electronic Arts, also Activision, favorite video game stocks. This was over at KeyBank. They said this group, some of them, particularly these 2 names, appear undervalued at current levels.
Can I just squeeze in another one there too?
Sure.
Netflix though finished higher here on the day, and some of that was about Squid Game, but also about gaming too, and they're pushing to that.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see, right? That's a standout sector in today's trade. Paychecks, I want to mention, also top in the S&P 500, NASDAQ 100. First quarter beat top and bottom lines. We got their earnings. They also boosted their fiscal year adjusted EPS forecast. Revenue growth also adjusted to the upside, so up 4.3%. Excuse me. It's up about more more than 20% so far. Match Group, if you know what's going on with Match Group, please reach out to me. Once again, a gainer, top on a percentage basis in the S&P 500. They own Hinge, they own OkCupid, Plenty of Fish. What a great name for a website. And they're up about 20% since their August 17th low. I don't know why.
I think that's the third time you've done a gainer for Match Group this week, Carol.
It's been on a tear.
Yeah, it has.
All right.
Well, retail not on a tear today. Look at this. The Bed Bath & Beyond finishing the day down more than 22%. It did fall as much as 20%, 27% in trading today. The company cutting its forecast for net sales, adjusted EBITDA, and EPS. Third quarter EPS and net sales also missed the average analyst estimate. Decline in foot traffic, especially in big states like Texas and California, hitting the company. And then, of course, supply chain challenges as well.
Is this company specific, or is this broad based?
I mean, look what happened. I think it's, if we see what happened with concerns about other companies that finished the day lower in the same sector, there are concerns about the whole company too. What do you think?
I don't know. We've had Mark Tritton on, the CEO, a few times, and I mean, look, he had a great pedigree because of his time, of course, at Target and a few other companies, but he had really made a big push here to make the stores, I guess, more accommodating. He talked a lot about store design and the fact that a lot of the stuff that they sell there, you kind of have to go to the store to get. But that's why I wonder if this is something specific to Bed Bath & Beyond or more just broader sector.
Well,
can I just say, you walk through those stores, I always am like, it's a little frustrating.
Yeah, that's the circle. It kind of takes you on a circle.
And then you always forget the coupon, right?
Yeah, and you always forget the coupon.
There's always a coupon.
They do honor them, though, I think, if you take them back. All right.
Let's talk about Kohl's, another retailer taking a hit today. Lowest intraday trading since February. Shares sliding after Bank of America slashed its investment recommendation by 2 levels. Taylor downgrading it to underperform from buy. Bank of America reduced the price target from $75 to $48. Also keeping an eye on Altria today. MO is the ticker. Shares falling following federal officials moving to block the import of IQOS heated tobacco devices here in the U.S. Heated tobacco, so not necessarily smoking, but because of patent infringement issues. The company does have 60 days to keep selling. Not a huge part of the business right now, but analysts say it's a growing part of the business, so certainly a setback for Altria.
Tim, what's so interesting is you talk about the volatility within the equity markets, and we certainly did not get volatility within the bond markets, at least on the day. Pretty unchanged, a well-behaved market. But this really masks the long-term story when yields generally are now the highest that we've seen going back since June of earlier this year. It has been a really rough quarter when you think about, Carol, what has been just a massive yield higher, bond price lower story. Earlier, we were, just talking about a chart on the TLT that's sort of that long duration ETF. And the bond price on that is now down, I think, below the 200-day moving average. So some of the calmness that I exhibit today is masking some of that under volatility that has been for the month and the quarter.
I feel like you're the queen of the ball, because I do feel like it's been all about yields, certainly in the last couple of weeks. You're very welcome. Very welcome. Because the yield moves have been pretty significant, and it feels like the yield market, the Treasury trade, has kind of caught up to, all right, the Fed is going to start not being so easy. Like, there's going to be a change. And it's not just the Fed, right, guys? I mean, as we wrap up this quarter, we've seen central banks around the globe, not necessarily coordinated efforts, but increasingly becoming hawkish.
And I hate to sort of throw water on this, though, but because one thing I don't understand about the yield, I understand the velocity, and that's what sort of scared people. But you go back to March when we had that big move higher yields. We're still well below those levels when we got to something like 1.7, 1.8, right on the 10-year. And where did the 30-year get up to?
Above 240.
Yeah, 240 or something. And, look, markets still managed to sort of go on to set several new record highs, even before you had the big drawdown in yields shortly after that. So I wonder if this is sort of more of a short-term reaction. You sort of plays into the month-end rebalancing, and that maybe, and once we get a few days or maybe a couple more weeks out, people realize that, okay, 1.5 on a 10-year yield isn't the end of the world.
But I also wonder if there is some sort of silver lining to this and the signal that it's sending, Sonali, that the economy is getting better, especially if we are seeing central banks around the world getting more hawkish. I mean, interest rates are low, and they have been low for a very long time. And accommodative monetary policy, we've needed it because of the global pandemic. But we see improvement, and perhaps that's reflecting this.
And even with a tough month for the S&P 500, I gotta say it's the first down month that we've seen since January. You've seen major equity offerings, Warby Parker going public, the hair cutter company today, massive rises. So,
Olaplex. Have you heard of this, Carol? It's really popular.
She definitely has.
No.
Not everything's so bad.
Tim, let
What's
me
it
talk
called?
to you. Have you heard of this? It's to build out your hair.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, we had the CEO on. It's really popular.
To build out your hair?
$16 billion
I don't know.
company.
Every person I talk to thinks this is like the best product in the world.
Okay.
I never heard of it.
I got to try it, I guess.
Sonali, we would be remiss if not mentioning your most read story on the Bloomberg. You talked to some really well-known names in the investment community.
That's interesting.
I'm old school.
A lot of time by the printer.
You know we have that online. Right?
And okay. Is there one big risk you think we should just bring to the attention of our audience right now?
It's interesting. The inequality risk touches me the most because we see it still. It's widened through COVID. It's still going on. It's clearly something that people will be thinking about into Jobs Day and next week, and so more immediate than some of the others that we've been thinking about.
All right, some breaking news. I mean, we were talking about EA a little bit earlier ago, Electronic Arts appointing Laura Melly as his new chief operating officer. This is a big revamp. And more importantly here, not to focus too much on her gender, it actually makes her one of the most powerful women in the video game industry right now. Again, this is COO of Electronic Arts. She's been with the company for a while now, and she has a lot of experience here in building out a lot of games, including Madden, FIFA, that's soccer, European football, as Caroline likes to call it, and Battlefield.
And what this means is Blake Jorgensen, who has been the CFO and the COO, is leaving around mid-2022. Carol, what was interesting is I was talking about this stock because it's been up, as you said, for about 6 straight days. It was KeyBank out with that smart note this morning. So certainly getting some shakeup at the leadership at the top.
And a recent add to the S&P 500, right? Relatively speaking.
And a big day for women. I've covered video games for a long time, actually, starting here, and it's been a tough road.
Yeah, all right. And that stock, a little bit of movement, slightly higher in the after hours, so certainly something one we might follow.
Well, it's on a 6-day winning streak, even before today.
I know.
Yeah.
I brought it up. I said, please
did you? Oh, you
send
did.
me emails.
I
Do you not listen to me?
I do. I always listen to you.
I'm so hurt.
Games
All right.
are the new meme stock.
All right, we got to run, guys. That'll do it for our cross-platform coverage on radio, on TV, on YouTube. Join us again. It'll be the Friday edition tomorrow, same time, same place.